Hello, everyone. I'm Filippo Napoli. For those who don't know me yet, I'm the PMO lead at Vulcan. I'm about to just start the presentation, and then Miriam will take it from here. Welcome. It would help if I share my screen as well. Is it sharing? Can you see it?
It is. It is in viewer mode and not presenter mode, but we can see
Yes.
this. Perfect.
What about now? Perfect.
Yep. Great. Okay. So it looks like we have a good number so far. Hopefully we get additional attendees, but we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. I'm Miriam Garza. I am co-chair for the Operations Committee along with my committee. I want to welcome you all to our first meeting of the 2026 year. We're really excited and have a lot to discuss today, and are glad that you are able to join us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're located. Next slide. So I'm going to pass it over to James first to talk through the voting results. If you recall, there was an email sent out, I believe, earlier in December about the strategy and the governance structure for Vulcan moving forward. And you were asked as voting members to review those two documents or several documents and vote. And so James will present those results here.
Thank you, Miriam. Yeah, so we're going to compress. There's going to be a little update from the PMO, but largely there's a lot of information to share between the members in this meeting. So we're going to compress that down. So really, I'm just going to report back the results. It closed at close of business yesterday Eastern time, and then we've processed those results. I'm going to give you some information about that today. You can see it on the screen as we are here, and then talk about the next two steps to get to our new steering committee that will be representing all of the members. So both of them you can see were, so in terms of whether it was quorate or not, we needed to get 60% according to the HL7 rules that we're following, and we were significantly above that. So we had 26 votes, and there were in both cases, the majority were for the votes. So it's a successful approval both of the new governance structure. So we're going to go ahead with the next two steps, which we'll talk about now, and the strategy. I'd like to say that we are going to provide the feedback. So there was a place for you to put your comments to your other members in there. We're going to provide an opportunity for that to be shared, and that will be fed back to the new steering committee to ingest and process the comments that you made in that voting process, which was really good. And hopefully you can see that transparency and action taking place there. Also, as you're aware, we're going to be, if you're one of the representative members, the voting members, you'll have been contacted for details. We're trying to put your information onto the website, your biographies, so that you can know who each other are, so you can talk to each other, but also representatives from your organizations can lobby you to talk to you about aspects that they want to be involved with, so that we can keep a closer contact with you there. So hopefully you can see that this is continuous improvement. It's vital that we're all working together to strengthen and evolve this accelerator. And I think this is a great step in doing that. And I'm really pleased that the governance structure and the strategy that was put together by a lot of work from your interim steering board last year, and that they've been approved and adopted. Okay, thank you. Can I have the next slide, please, Filippo? So one of the things about the communication throughout last year, and then the intense communication with our representative members or voting members, was that we have, in clinical trial terms, lost to follow-up a couple of organizations. And we've, through significant effort, we've been trying to make contact, but these are people that weren't able to come to the meetings or respond to the messages. And so some of them we've dealt with and we know, why they're lost to follow-up, discontinuing membership, for example. But I've listed the ones here that we were excluding from the denominator in terms of quorum because we can find no one involved in any of the projects, no one involved in any of the events or meetings, and nobody responding to our attempts to reach out. So if you can have a look at those and go, oh no, James, you've missed something here, and point me to those people, we'll get them reconnected and re-established as contributors to this organization. But at the moment, we've lost connection with them, and so I wanted to be clear with all of you. This is that we need to make reconnection with them. We have, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Anita. I can speak on, well, not really on behalf of University of Colorado, but I was the main contact at the University of Colorado, and I've since moved from University of Colorado to North Carolina. So I don't think anybody, I don't, I could give you a contact with someone's name to reach out to see if they're still interested, but just so you know, I was the main person there.
Fabulous. Lisa, hopefully you pick that up and we'll follow that up afterwards. Be great to get University of Colorado re-engaged since you've moved from there. Fabulous. Thank you.
James, could you let me know who was our contact previously with NCATS? I can reach out to NCI to see who we should be.
It was Ken Gersting at one time, so Ken is no longer with
Yeah,
NCATS.
yeah.
This is really good. Lisa, I can see you putting thumbs up in the background. This is the.
I'll find out who's going to be taking over NCATS from Ken and who we can, make sure that they're still interested in. So I'll take that as an action item. Thanks.
Yes, and I've seen
Hi, Paul.
Catherine mentioning Duke. That's fabulous. This is precisely what I wanted. So that would be really good to get people engaged. We have new members joining as well, and one of the things that Lisa is going to be doing is giving an opportunity for new members to introduce themselves, why they're joining, and what they want to be involved with. And we're going to see that in a moment with our latest member, but I'll let Lisa do that. I'm conscious that I don't want to consume the whole meeting with admin, so if we can move on to the next slide. Thank you everybody for your responses there to help us get there. Right, so the next steps then, just to be clear what the next steps are, the voting members, those of you that are on this call and those of you that will be getting a direct communication from us clarifying what the votes were with more detail and what the next steps are. But just for you, the operations committee, which is voting members plus, in reforming the steering committee for 2026, we're opening the call for nominations now. This is going to be, there's going to be a link to that. There's a form to submit for your nominations. And these are nominating for the steering committee of 13 members, one of which is an HL7 representative, so 12 members that are representing different member categories. All the explanation is there. And so we want, this is an exciting opportunity to get involved in the new leadership and direction of this organization. So we're hoping to get some, I've already had a number of conversations with people who are interested in putting their name forward, and I'm really looking forward and excited to get those in there. So now's the time, as of today, the call for nominations will be open. There will be a 2-week window for those nominations to be made. The nominations and why they're being nominated will be publicized, along with on our website, the list of your voting members. So if you have a view and you want to express that view to your representative, go ahead and do that. And then the election period will start on February the 4th. It'll be an online vote, as we've said. And then by the end of February, after February the 18th, we'll have those results. We'll know who has been elected, and those people will be contacted, and we'll be forming and establishing the new steering committee.
James, and that link is on the website, or can you put a link to it in the chat?
Yeah, so the link for the voting members will go out in an email to them.
Fantastic.
But the current location on the website is still being tested. I looked at it this morning, so we're not quite ready to go with that yet, because it was just completed today. We want to put the results up of this one. So Johnny, if you're online, I don't think it's ready yet, is it? My understanding is that we'll send it out to this group once it's ready to go, so that everybody on this meeting can go and look at those nominations and get the nominations in there.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you. I think that's me done. I think I'm handing over to Lisa next to introduce our new member and what's happening in the membership side. So over to you, Lisa.
Well, thanks, James. Obviously, membership, we are completely focused on expanding this great community, because the more people we have involved, the wider difference we can make. And obviously, you've seen the contacts that we've lost contact with, and thank you so much for suggesting names there. But any other suggestions where you believe we've got people missing that should really be part of this community, then please let me know. But I'm delighted that we have a new member, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be introducing new members at these meetings every month. And we've offered them the opportunity to give you a quick 5 minutes of who they are, what they do, and what they're hoping to achieve from Vulcan, just to get that conversation started. So I'm going to hand over to Nursey from the Synergist to tell you a little bit more about his organisation. So Nursey, over to you.
Thank you. And before I go forward on the slides, first of all, nice to be here. Some of you, like Rachel, Lisa, James, we met in Copenhagen, of course, for the first time. And even Panagiotis, you were on the Copenhagen call with us online when we were presenting at the EHDS meeting there. So that was very nice. Chris, I met you in Frankfurt, of course, in the CDISC event somewhere in the spring. So quite a few people that I've somehow met face to face or have had some contact with. And Brian and Hugh and I were together on the Connectathon last week, preparing some activity on eligibility criteria structuring. So the primary interest that I have is all around structuring of eligibility criteria in clinical protocol summaries. And so that's why we want to be a member of Vulcan, because we have a couple of projects we're involved in that the Synergist runs. One of them is CTDN, where we run the project, and another one where we are a co-lead of a European project is called Ready Project. Both projects have the involvement of HL7 and CDISC in their core. So, but before I go more about that, I'll tell you a little bit about the Synergist. The Synergist is a non-profit organization. You can go to the next slide. The main rallying call we have is that we try to do intelligence and do collective intelligence and co-create so that we can solve societal issues and get to societal outcomes. Next slide. What we believe is that we have the world is complex, and the most complex societal issues are best solved if we address them together and we work together. So we don't shy away from taking on tough topics. And I think eligibility criteria activity is one of those topics which is tough to solve. In terms of what we are as an organization, in the next slide, we represent around 18 nationalities where the numbers are not visible. So we represent, in terms of nationalities, we represent around 18 nationalities. There's about 16,000 people in our network. We have 73 partners across the globe that we interact with, and the Synergist itself is running several programs. The programs are listed underneath the big box. So the program names are PFMD, which is a membership-based organization, not unlike Vulcan, where people are paid members and voluntary members who join. So non-profit and paid, very similar structure to what you have, with a board which is nominated every year. Then we have other programs like FT3, Motherhood Collective, and Gravitate Health, and so on. So several programs that we do. I'm going to focus on one of the programs, which is called PFMD. If we go to the next slide. PFMD is the program under which CTDN and Ready reside. So CTDN is the Clinical Trials Distribution Network, and Ready is the European project looking at also structuring clinical trials, but also making clinical trials more accessible to people who don't reach it today. So Ready's focus is all around reaching underserved populations and underrepresented populations of Europe. Next slide. PFMD's purpose is that it's an organization where PFMD believes that they want to solve the problems that in healthcare with patients involved. So PFMD's primary focus is around how do we get better patient experience, but how do we, more importantly, make sure their voice is inside all the designs that we make and all the decisions that we make around healthcare. If we go to the next slide, there's a whole bunch of programs that PFMD does, so tons of them. So patient movement catalyst, the POF, which is an event which happens once a year where about 300 to 400 people are brought together in Europe from industry, from patient organizations, from academia, from plenty of places, and they sit together for 3 days trying to look at common issues. There's PFMD itself, which is the mother organization which spawns all these programs, and the money collected in PFMD actually gets assigned to these programs. And then we have READY and CTDM, which are also a program of PFMD. So the Synergist is the staffing organization that handles it, but we run it out of our PFMD organization. And CTDN is where we solve the challenge of eligibility criteria. READY is where we solve the challenge of reaching underserved and underrepresented populations in Europe in clinical trials. So that was my deck. You can stop now. Any questions or anything that you want to ask about it? If nothing here, please message me later.
Yeah, I think we'll take questions offline if that's okay, Nursey, because we've got quite a few things to get through. But thank you, and we're really looking forward to working with the Synergist and making things happen. And I'm sure the rest of the membership will reach out as well. So thank you. Really happy to have you on board. So moving on now, I'm also going to cover events, and our next event is Fuse Connect in Texas, happening in March. We've been working quite closely with our kind of working committee on this event, who have now agreed what each of the sessions are, which I'm showing here. The synopsis and the abstracts for each of these sessions are now available on the website, and there are opportunities for you to put yourselves forward to speak. Just to give some high-level overview on this, we've got a great speaker to open the session, and our aim with this event and our pavilion at Fuse is really to tell the world about fire and really give some education and get people engaging with us. And we've got Russ Leftwich, who is going to do our opening keynote. He's actually going to do a 2-hour workshop, and I'm told he is the guy that knows everything about fire, so we're hoping to create a great crowd there. We then have some sessions where we're going to talk further about Vulcan and the project. So if you're involved in a project or a project lead, would love to have you involved in speaking. I know Filippo has reached out to a number of people there. Likewise with the VIB. We're going to be doing some great networking sessions where we're going to be talking about the future and future projects. And then we've got some panels and debates. But as I say, further detail is on the website, but reach out if you want to discuss any further. We are working on other events and hopefully more news on those next month. But I'm going to hand it over to Rachel now to tell you a little bit more about marketing and comms.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm ecstatic about Fuse. Thank you for that update. And for marketing communications, we've got a couple things in the pipeline. So new year, new communications. We've got some things that are about to go out the door. Our member spotlights are officially kicking off. We have been conducting interviews, and our first ones are just waiting for approval so that they can go onto LinkedIn. Please remember, please sign up if you haven't gotten to an interview yet. Every member gets 2 spotlights per year, and we're January, so you've got 12 months to take advantage of this. You get 1 spotlight for a subject matter expert, organization civic project. This is part of your benefits. So please, please, please reach out to me. Let's get you on the schedule. Let's get you interviewed, and let's get you lined up for a spotlight. These do get boosted on LinkedIn, right? So this is something that we put a little bit of muscle behind, and it's a great way to increase followers for yourself and for your organization. So that's the first thing. Second, we are starting our monthly newsletters. This is something that we heard feedback. We wanted to have better communication with our membership. So we are going to be initiating monthly newsletters. The first one should be going out Oh dear goodness. I hope it's this week. It should be this week or Monday at the very latest. And these are going to be one of the best ways to stay in touch, especially if you can't make, if you have to miss one of these monthly webinars with us, then newsletter should have everything you need. It's going to have updates on projects, upcoming events, upcoming ways to participate in Vulcan and make the most of your membership. So communicate with us if you have something that you want to promote. We'd be happy to feature you in there. Otherwise, it's going to be something that comes to your inbox every month with a little snapshot of everything that's going on. And on the note of promotion, conference season is around the corner. We all know that spring is full of conferences, HIMSS, the ASTP, State Health IT, VIVE, all of these great conferences are going to be happening. If you are presenting on FHIR or a Vulcan related project at an event, please let us know. We'd love to promote that on social media. We'd love to promote that through the newsletter. Let us help you amplify your voice. Vulcan might not necessarily have a booth at that event, but we want to really help amplify everything that you're doing in the world. So if you are presenting, if you're attending an event, please let us know. We can try and help coordinate between members for meetups, and of course give you an extra spotlight on any kind of presentation that you're doing. And that is the marketing communications update. Over to Hugh.
Thank you, Lisa. It looks like next we have the Connectathon summaries. We have both Hugh Glover and Jeff Lowe to tell us about UDP and schedule of activities. I think we start with UDP, so I'll pass it to you, Hugh.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we move on to the next slide. So if you didn't know, last week was the Connectathon, a virtual event. One of the 3 times a year Connectathons. You got 2 in person, 1 virtual. The next one, so you can get yourself organized to attend, will be in Rotterdam in May. So the UDP project is utilizing digital protocol, triggered off from the M11 attempt to produce a standard for organizing the information within a protocol and putting that into a more digital form, but also tying in with the USDM effort to provide a comprehensive information model, and then providing a standard representation of all that in FHIR. And the key point from this slide is that what we are working on at the moment is the first of several implementation guides. It is effectively a core or a base or a root or an umbrella, whatever you want to call it, but it is the implementation guide that the others will refer to. So this one deals with basic principles, and then as we go forward, we will be producing additional implementation guides that will look at specific use cases. The point behind the Connectathon, again, if you're not aware of it, is to really test things through. So it's a hands-on working session. It's not just a chat or an education. It's actually sit down and try and get some code written, get some test cases run through. And we've had a succession of Connectathons. I think this is probably about the 12th we've had for UDP. Next slide, please. Of all the Connectathons we've had, this was the best attended. So I think we had something like 25 different names present on a different organization. So a really good turnout for that. So thank you to everybody that participated. And the next slide, please. One of the things that was really noticeable about this event was we had a much wider geographical attendance. And this is the timetable for the event. And I show it only to make the point that we were really trying to accommodate multiple different time zones. So we actually ran some specific sessions focused on our Japanese members, trying to make it more convenient for them to attend and join in. And as you'll see in a minute, we got some real progress on the Japanese side of things. It does make for some complicated organization, though. Next slide, please. So there were several threads within our overall track. So the primary thread in terms of work towards our next ballot, which will be in May, was looking at the detail that's present within the implementation guide and going through, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, checking everything to see in really fine detail. And we were focusing particularly on the overall study metadata. So these are the things that go on the title page. We're also looking at eligibility criteria and looking at the amendment sections. The mechanics of this, as they always are, was to start from a document, put that through a transformation, which takes it through USDM and then into FHIR, and then pull it back out of FHIR and put it back into human readable format. And then you compare what you started with and what you end up with. And the question is whether the two are the same. And yes, for the majority of things, they are the same. There are odd bits and pieces that we're still finding and sorting out that have to be worked through. The other part of this thread was, where do we go next? What will be one of our use cases that has a child IG? There is a strong view at the moment that we should move on to looking at eligibility criteria. There's a lot of interest in that as a whole, and I'll talk in a minute about some of the work we did there. So next slide, please. I think the surprise success in surprise in the sense that it all worked so smoothly was our first attempt at taking a protocol that was in Japanese and putting it through our process. It went through successfully on the first attempt, which if you've ever tried doing any sort of processing, I'm sure you know that it's very unusual for things to work on the first attempt. But this one did. Yes, there were things we needed to improve on, and the rendition of it improved each time we went through. But we do have now a protocol which comes up in Japanese. The next slide, please. We also spent quite a lot of time looking at structured eligibility criteria. Nursey mentioned already when he was talking about what the synergist does, that he and Brian Alper and I and others spent quite a lot of time looking at how this works through. There are really two different elements to that work. One was the represented on this slide, which was the mechanics of how you actually take a block of text and then put that into a structured form, which is machine processable. So there was a degree of learning in that, trying out with tooling to see how it works, and just getting to grips with that. It was classic connectathon, heads down, actually get on with some actual work. Go to the next slide, please. We also spent a couple of hours going through different sorts of stakeholder requirements for eligibility criteria and representing that. So we looked at it from the perspective of sponsors, from the perspective of sites and researchers, and from the perspective of patients and care providers. And really, there are key takeaways that come both from this work and for what we did in a more practical sense of taking eligibility criteria and putting them into practice. And it is, as Nursey said, converting this stuff into a structured form is difficult. Eligibility criteria are not written with the expectation that people are going to make them machine processable. they are written as blocks of text for people who have clinical training, who can interpret what has been said and make judgments over and over again on a case of whether somebody fits those eligibility criteria or not. There is a degree of allowing for exceptions, that something will say a criteria should be greater than 6, whatever 6 might represent, and somebody 6.5. Is that somebody you allow in or not? That's a case of judgment. There's also the whole question of how you find the right codes when you're coding things. And I think it was a realization for many people that there is a real risk in doing this work, that you attempt to make everything into a coded form when its original source was perhaps not meant to be in a coded form. And I think our learning is that we have to look very carefully at each of the use cases, and that we will have the structure that I talked about at the very beginning. We will have a core of how this is done, and we will then have a series of individual implementation guides that talk about the way in which you would handle eligibility criteria in an assortment of different use cases, depending on whether you're a sponsor, a researcher, a care provider, a patient, whatever it may be. But with that, I know we are limited for time, so I will hand on to Jeff to talk about scheduled activities.
Thanks, Hugh. Next slide, please. So what we've been approaching with the SOA is sort of more of providing an SOA that's kind of based around the whole idea of units of work. So the idea is we want to be able to have an SOA that can actually then be turned into tasks, plans, which can be executed and also evaluated and everything like that. But one of the big things we want to be able to do is we want to be able to work out whether or not we could embed enough logic in the SOA as using the FHIR resources, such that we can help ourselves with the understanding where we're going. So in this case here, we've got a visit in where there's a couple of possible outcomes. One of the outcomes is early termination. So based on physician PI decision or patient decision, they may leave the study. And the other one is to talk about normal progression in terms of we go on to the next visit. So we want to be able to provide that kind of graph based representation for the activities within an SOA and prove that they would be able to be sort of borne out. Most of this is based around the feedback that we got to our initial release of the IG, which is identified sort of 3 main areas for augmentation, I guess. One was around unscheduled activities, so unscheduled visits. Next one was around sort of conditional activities, so pregnancy tests, those sorts of things. And the final one was dealing with sort of more complex workflow-based study designs, specifically focused on oncology cycles. So we have a plan. We wanted to test it, and the way we were going to test it is using kind of a evaluate, execute, evaluate loop. So the extension we've been using is something that was put together by Andy Richardson and Patrick Ishinin, which is published and some of the links available there. But it talks about specifically what we were testing was looking at this SOA transition. So actually specifying, given a particular location in the patient journey, what would be the next possible outcomes? What could be the next possible outcomes? So some of them are going to be, you would always have one which is the expected in terms of normal progression, but there are other ones which are dependent on sort of feedback or input from other systems. And here we have an example of a condition which says that you would follow this path if the patient had signed informed consent, or you'd follow this path if the patient had chosen to withdraw. How that would be expressed with using FHIR resources is another question. It might require some sort of external input to the system. Next slide, please. So our methodology was effectively, like I said, so we have an enroll where we create a patient using the FHIR resources, and then we evaluate. So we look at, given the current patient, the research subject status, what's the next step, and then execute. If there's any feedback that needs to be supplied, so say by a user, that would be fed in at this point. And then you evaluate again. So the whole idea is kind of continual sort of looping around this concept to basically to simulate the process of actually running a patient through a study using FHIR resources. Next slide, please. I don't know why the lines aren't showing up on this. It's a bit disappointing. But the one on the far left is a plan definition. The plan definition is a definitional FHIR resources that's used for as part of there's definition resources, event resources, and request resources. So definition resources get turned to request resources, which then get turned into event resources. So plan definition gets turned into a request orchestration, which is basically kind of a workflow for the entirety of that visit. It generates a care plan, and one of the care plan can then generate other activities. So in this case here, we see care plan generates a service request, which then creates an encounter. But by the same token, the care plan could also generate a series of tasks. So a task might be do a vital signs assessment, or take a blood draw, or any of those sorts of things, stuff which we've covered in the past. And for the execution loop, we didn't want to make it too complicated. So effectively what we did is in the FHIR server is we would go through and create all of these things with the status of active, which signifies those things are going on. And then we would then update all of them to say they were completed, because we needed to be able to look back at the resources that had been done to basically work out what the things were to do next. Okay, next slide, please. So this is an example of how we were doing with scripting. So on the top left-hand corner is the enroll process. So effectively, we pass in the name of the study, the patient identifier, and then a subject identifier. That generates a research subject in the FHIR server, which we can then use on the panel on the right-hand side to evaluate. So we say, okay, now we would get a research subject identifier out of the first step. We would use that again to do the evaluation. So at this point, you can see all the things that are available. So it enumerated all the things that had been done, and then it popped up a series of actions that are available. So in this case here, it gave us a recommended next transition. So the last iteration was a cycle 1 day 1 activity. The next one in the plan was a cycle 1 day 14. So then we feed that into the bottom left-hand side to actually do that. And so in doing so, we effectively have our evaluate, execute, evaluate loop, which allows us to test the fact that if we got into a place where we didn't it wasn't sort of able to decide where to go next, that would be kind of a fail for the plan. So we weren't actually able to see that. We were able to follow that through. We had to sort of refine some of the logic. The thing about this is, though, because we're able to write it using this sort of event, this sort of human in the loop kind of thing, we can also we could then fold that particular logic into an app. So we could, for example, have a Smart on FHIR application, which can then go through the process of suggesting the next activities and everything like that. Next slide, please. So the designs we went for, we started with what we call the straightforward one, where we're just talking about going from screening to follow-up, looking at all the different transitions and then walking through that. The next one, we went down a path where we have basically 2 arms, where the actual treatment path would be different between the 2 arms. So we could determine based on the randomization activity as to what arm they would be going through. And so the logic or the path that we had defined were able to be followed based on that one decision. So we didn't get to day 1 arm A and get it pop up to say, oh, you can do day 1 arm B, because at that point there was no kind of path for that. Next slide, please. And then we had one which was based on sort of an oncology cycle. We took an extremely simplified one where we effectively had odds and even cycles. Every odd cycle, or at the end of every even cycle, there'd be a disease response assessment. And based on the outcome of that, they would either continue back to the odd cycle or they would terminate, basically. So all of the greens are basically initiation of interaction, all the reds are completion of an interaction. So we have an interaction for the entire path. Then we also have an interaction for the cycles, each of the cycles. And so we can kind of follow that through. We can see all these activities occurring and then use that to evaluate as to where we would go next. Next slide, please. And then we actually just had it generate a workflow, exactly what had happened as part of the report. So here in this case here, we completed the screening encounter. Treatment day 1 had a decision, could go to day 7, day 15, or end of study. go to day 7, day 15, all that sort of stuff there. And then we make the decisions. You can see the decisions reflected in the steps themselves. Next slide, please. Same approach here, where we have like basically a decision point, the randomization. The decision was made to go to day 1A, which is effectively reproducing the patient being randomized to arm A, and then you can see the flow is there's no decisions from that point forward because there's like a simple flow. Next slide, please. This one's a bit nutty because this is talking about like all the transitions that happen within the cycles. Move on to the next slide. And then you can kind of, like, it's hard to see, but you can see that effectively we go through the odd cycle for a start. And then once we've got to the end of the odd cycle, we then move into the even cycle. We complete the even cycle. And then we have the option to go, we could have gone to like ending the patient interaction, but and then we chose to go into starting from cycle even end to cycle 1 odd start. And then we can keep cycling that way around and show the patient going through the path as we might expect. Next slide.
Oops.
For our next steps, we're targeting like sort of having the IG ready for review the end of February, with the view to hopefully balloting at the same time as UDP, sort of, which is in May. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Next segment, we're going to be talking about projects. Now that you heard about UDP and schedule of activities, we thought give you a quick highlight on the other projects as well. First project is API Exchange for Medicinal Products, or APICS. This is one of our newer projects for this year. We're currently working on the infrastructure. We do have FHIR servers, but we're working on something a bit more stable. Because the project has to do with using the subscription feature of HL7, it's not easy to find this feature in the servers that are available. So we're trying to find the right servers that meet our requirements. We're developing the API use cases that are going to help us with the testing. And we have a demo, which we're planning towards the end of April. I think right now the date that it's been thrown out there is April 30th. And this demo is going to be a dry run in preparation of what we're going to be testing during the Connectathon. If you'd like to get involved or participate into this demo, just let me know and I'll put you in contact with the co-lead, which is Craig. This project, if you're not familiar with it, it's very important because these APIs are basically the messages to the regulators, so they can be reutilized with many other IGs, for example, with UDP, on how to communicate with the regulator. And I believe that's one of the use cases that we're actually going to be testing. We like to test anyway. So if you, again, like to know more about that project, let me know, and I can put you in contact with the group. Next project we have is FHIR Toolmap. As you know, FHIR Toolmap, we already have an IG, which we're going through the ballot reconciliation. We hope to finish that by the end of this month, so we can try to publish by February, kind of early March timeframe, and which will bring us to the next stage of the project, which is working on version 2 of FHIR Toolmap. We like to take an STU approach this time, which stands for Standard for Trial Use. And at the moment, we talk to the group and see what use cases they'd like to look at. And those are the 4 use cases you see on the screen. We have race and ethnicity, gender, microservices, and life sciences use cases. We're exploring them at the moment, and we like to come up with our list of requirements, which is what we're going to be taking to work on in this next IG, which we are targeting for September 2026 ballot cycle. Next project is Phenomics Exchange. The version 1 of the IG is current. Well, the ballot just ended actually 2 days ago. So we're going to be working on ballot reconciliation. And then similar to FHIR Toolmap, we look to publicize the IG. And the group is currently trying to regroup, and we would need more resources. And we're also looking for vendors that could help us test the IG. The focus of the group is to extend the EHR's access to phenotypic data through FHIR. We already have a core group, and Shahim Assaid has been a big help and the co-lead of this effort. If you're interested into phenotypic data and would like to get involved, again, would like to talk to you and get you introduced to the group. So hopefully you can help us with the next stage, which is looking at a SDU ballot. And depending on requirements, right now we're thinking about September 2026 for that new IG. And the last project I had on my list was real world data. The IG was previously published in 2023, and it's STU, again, standard for trial use. We would like to find more implementers of this IG so we can bring its status to normative. Typically, I believe it's between 3 to 5 implementers we need before we can move to that stage. We are looking also for co-lead and technical lead people that can help us in that role. I've already just this morning talked to some of the team members from our member group that might be helping us with this. If you also like to get involved, please let us know. And as a general reminder, I think this was the last of my slides. Yes, it is. We do have in our website, which is HL7Vulcan.org, if you go to the projects page, each project does have a blue button. So if you'd like to get in touch with the group or follow the latest updates, please do subscribe to the project, and we'll add you to the listserv so you get updates about what's coming up, and you also get invited to the project groups and may attend as time permits. With this, I believe we wrap our presentation for today. Miriam, back to you.
Thank you. Just want to open it up for any questions from the group or comments.
While we're waiting for the comments to come in, Mariam, I'll just underscore one of the pieces that might have slipped through there from Filippo. We really need new co-leads to take on the real world data project. There's a lot of work gone in. We're very grateful for all the members who contributed to that to get it to the state it's in, standard for trial use. It's not too much now to push it into normative, and we really just need some people that are well connected in the real world data space that can take this project on. We're here as a PMO to help you. There's members in that team already, but if you're sitting there thinking that could be me or that could be someone else, please let us know, or please let them know to reach out to the team or to Filippo or to myself.
Thanks, James. I think everything in the chat has been addressed, and I don't see anything new, don't hear anything from the audience. So if there's nothing, then I thank you all for joining. Thanks to all the presenters today for the insight and the great information, and we hope to hear from you all soon. We will hopefully see you next month. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.